I'm very proud to be here with you, Martin, and very much interested in your knowledge about crisis and the social and the society that we live today. The small society, I mean, family, I mean, the town, the city, the government, and the universe. So wherever you brought us, you bring
Okay.
us, will be important. I'm proud to be here also with my dear friend of many years, Menno de Lange, psychotherapist as me, and we shared so much our lives in the therapy field, no? And so thank you for introducing Martin to me, to us, you know. And this is it. Let's go on, and please, Martin, be comfortable and free to talk wherever you like, or you think about the crisis that we are living in this world.
Okay. Thank you very much for this invitation. And you could say the crisis is not that big that we can't meet each other. So that's a glimpse
Yes.
of hope. Yeah. The theme is crisis in and out, and my maybe I can introduce a bit. My profession was I'm a pensioned now, professor in social work, and especially in the innovation of social work, because also social work, as in education and healthcare and all these disciplines, the police and are more or less destructed by new public management, which made everything very efficient, but forgot the content of these professions. So it's very hard to recover from that, and that was my research theme: how to recover from this absurd, inhumane rationality. And I will tell you about what we discovered and what we had as a solution from that. And this has to do something to do with the theme of today, the crisis. And the crisis is a polite crisis. It's not just economy, ecology. It's a social, it's a mental, and it's all combined. It all affects each of these layers of life and society. So that makes it very complex when you talk about how to get out of that. And so I want to tell some of the ideas of how to bring light in this very complicated crisis situation. Is that okay that I start with that now? There is this famous saying of American philosopher Jameson. He said in 1994, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than an end to capitalism. So that shows a bit in the crisis we are in. We can, our imagination can very clearly think about what we saw this summer of wildfires, of storms, and all these things, and that will accelerate, that will become worse. But it's very hard to see how to stop the cause of that all. And the cause of that all is man-made. Most of it is man-made. And man-made, Jameson pointed at capitalism, that capitalism is a system which exploits nature, but also people in such a way that it has, massive consequences. So to look this monster in the mouth, we should look at what is have we to go back to the 19th century and the battle against capitalism, or is there some more easier way to start the end of the crisis? So out of the crisis for me is a mental problem, but also a social problem, because when you can't imagine a better future, what generations of people thought, well, we have not a good life now, but there will be better times, and they had imagination about that. Now it's very hard to imagine better times. So that's a mental problem, but also a social problem. I will discuss with you, and I will show you how working with, let's say, the poor people, what my work was, my investigations were, that it gives an idea of how to get out of the crisis. I'll give you an example. In Holland, about 70% of people in the mental health institutions worked with have poverty problems. That's a thing that was discovered by many research. And still, the mental problem is there is an institutionalized industry of psycho and pharma work focused on that, and they forgot that the cause, 70% of it, has to do with poverty. So this is a demonstration that it's a lot has to do with the way we organize things. And when you think about getting out of the crisis, you should think about the social situation and what is actually happening, and a lot of things we don't even imagine anymore, they understand anymore. So we talked about this before, and then I mentioned Paulo Freire. Paulo Freire was in Amsterdam in 1970, and he pointed this direction. He said, the deprived and oppressed, they are told that it's their own fault. But that's not true. These are false assumptions. So, and he pointed at the school system that thinks, that says everything is your own merit, and doesn't see what actually, that it produces inequality. And Menno has worked in these areas as well, and we saw how this comes into your head and in your system, that you start to believe it. And Freire said, the only way out is connect with these people, and by connecting and by cooperating, you will discover the richness of the poor. That was more or less his message. And his message was to work with the heart, not with the head. The head is secondary, the heart is primary. So these are more or less recipes for how to get out of the crisis. And I call that the relational turn, because a lot of the systems we are enclosed by are very rational, very pointed at effectiveness and evidence-based practice, and it has to be When it is not scientific, it can't exist, all these things. And a relational turn says, well, it's not the head, it's the heart that you should start with. And we use a Dutch word for that, bondgenoten. And you can translate that as committed, cooperative companions. So start to connect about a cause and be committed on this cause and work on it by making networks of committed cooperative companions, bondgenoten. It sounds easy, but it's not easy at all, because there are a lot of hiccups to bring this in practice. So I want to tell you a bit about how we in Amsterdam are doing this, because then you can feel and see that it's possible, even and with a lot of gratitude too. It's very it gives you a good feeling, because it starts from good feelings. And I'll tell you a bit about the way to work with experienced experts, we call them, ervaringsdeskundigen. So people who have experience with poverty, mental, physical conditions, domestic violence, addictions, all kind of trauma situations they had in their life, but often on their own or with the help of some professionals, some friends, or they showed resilience, and they came out more or less of these situations. But while they often didn't have a good school time and didn't have diplomas, etc. But they are very experienced. They know they know the street, let's say that, and they know what life is behind the official definition of reality. And their knowledge can be used, and it's very useful to change processes also of the social work and the science about society. And no, that's what we do the last 10 years to say, well, this experience knowledge should be part and equal part of the development of solutions in society. And we use more or less our own proverb. Managers say either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And we turn that around. We say, if you're not part of the problem, you can't be part of the solution. So that's more or less the change we are working with, and it's a radical. It's you could say, it's a total different way of looking at things and working with things. And we had, for example, an education program for people with this experience and knowledge, in which we discovered there are more or less 8 changes or 8 lessons learned. Maybe I can tell some of these lessons. The first one is from me to we, from me to us. So learn not to be just the client or the customer, but learn to cooperate, and so in that way see that things can be much easier, and you will come further than when on your own. And the second is the aim from distrust to trust. A lot of people in these situations have a lot of distrust, and they show it in what I could say. In Dutch I say klagen, claimen, klooien. So that means they how to say it? Klagen, claimen, klooien. Lamenting. Claiming, lamenting, claiming, and bullshitting. That's part of their attitude towards what happens in the world and themselves. So it's with a lot of distrust and destruction as well. So this is a very important lesson, how to become someone that can create and develop. So from distrust to trust. That's the second lesson. The third is from minus to plus. So you can be part of finding solutions. It's not something, and that's the aim. Your way of looking at things should change from it's all nothing towards I can be part of the solution. And the fourth is, and that has to do with this education thing, from we call it belerend, so that somebody say this is what you have to do, towards lerend, something you together find a way. So learning is not something schoolish, from one who knows everything and the others know nothing. They know a lot of things too, and have to get an idea of their own expertise, and that it's growing, etc. That's a very important development too in these classes, groups, we call it. And so the fifth lesson is you're not a client or a customer anymore, but you're a co-producer or participant. That's a redefining your role. A lot of people from these situations are only looked at as clients and customers, and then they start all this behavior I just told about, that they're just opposing and lamenting, etc., and claiming. The sixth one is from exclusive to inclusive. So exclusive is often that you're labeled. You're an exclusive label. You're stigmatized. And inclusive is you have, everybody has special situation, traits, etc. And how to make them clear in such a way that you can find out what do we have in common. So that's another way of thinking of yourself and the other. So you're not an object anymore, but also a subject. You're not just saying I'm an individual, but I'm also part of a bigger. We can understand each other. That's the main thing. What happens there. And the seventh lesson is from secure to insecure knowledge. Secure knowledge is what is the dominant knowledge. They said this is what happens, and then it's scientifically, etc. While in their situation there is a lot of insecure knowledge. So they grasp it, but it is not an official thing. And together they can by reflecting and communicating about it, develop their expertise, knowledge into expertise, experience, knowledge into experience, expertise. And this expertise is also that you can say, you can look above yourself. You said, what I experience, etc. No, this experience I have, I can use to help others to live themselves. And that's a very important quality of experience experts. And the last, that's more systemic. It's from evidence-based practice towards practice-based evidence. So the practice is always in the lead and not the theory. So by this more or less curriculum, we develop, and that I will talk about later, a new group within Amsterdam society. So not just in the social domain, but also in all different domains in which people with this experience participate, not just in the executing thing, but also in policy making and research, etc. So it makes quite a difference when these people also be part of the policy making and the research, and when we discovered that. Although there are a lot of people against this, because they have their positions based on their specific professional or scientific knowledge. So to learn to cooperate these three types of knowledge, professional, scientific, and experience, that's the process we're in now. And to stimulate that, we made the ANA, Amsterdam Network of Experience Knowledge. And that's a network now of 250 people that are not just all experience experts, but they are bondgenoten, they are committed towards what this aim. And so that can be civil servants, social workers, politicians, etc. So that's a very rich network. It's not an organization. We don't want it to be an organization, because, well, very soon it will be hierarchy and etc. No, it's a network of people that are supporting each other and stimulating development, and together that this relational turn will continue in policy in Amsterdam. So that's what we are doing at the moment. And maybe I can give you a few examples of people who are experienced experts. And what they do. And there, I did some study about that. They are very, for example, when they are professionals as well, not all of them are professionals, but they're participating in practices. But sometimes they also have diplomas. And then you see that they have a different way of dealing with their work. It's not just from methods and all these evidence-based ways of acting, but they have also a broader scope. They see how things are, how problems are interconnected. That's not just one, but there are all kinds. So that's how I started about the crisis. It's a polar crisis. It's all interconnected. And how to handle this interconnectedness of things? Well, the answer is by producing counter interconnectedness. And they do that. They know how to connect with, for example, people in difficult situations, for example, mental situations. Had several mental problems and psychosis, etc. And got a treatment, the official treatment with medicines, so lithium and all these things. And one day she became pregnant, and she thought, I don't want my child be born with lithium. So she said to the psychiatrist, I stopped with this medicine, or how you call it. And he said, well, I'll organize a meeting with all kind of my colleagues. So there were 5 white coats in front of her. And she was sitting there as a young pregnant mother. And she said, I stopped your medication. And they all talked on her and said, well, it's so dangerous, shoot. But she was so convinced that this was not good that she said, I won't do it. And that gave her an aim. And since then, she looks at her head. She can talk about her head as some warm thing. She said, well, it's a bit crowded at the moment. My head is a bit crowded, so I have to do things so it can be more in rest. So she participated in how to feel in herself, to control and to direct her situation. And she never had, and this is now more than 10 years going, never had psychosis anymore. And so in this way, you can see that she's an example of what was called the in the 70s, where, for example, radical therapy and all these movements. Why should we trust this pharma industry? Why can't we develop another way of dealing with these problems? And since then, she does that professionally. She works. She helps other people to trust themselves and to listen to themselves better. So, and that's one example. Another example is it's a very interesting example. She comes from the Turkish community, and she, when she was 11 years old, their parents kept her at home. She shouldn't be at school anymore. And she was always waiting at the civil servant that would come one day and ring and say, you have to go to school. We have these civil servants that are, when people are not at school, then they chase them almost. Leerplichtambtenaar. But he never came. He never rang at her door, so she didn't have education. And later on, she became my student because we had a special school for people who had diplomas, but were very able to do a lot of nice things. And she followed this school for 1 year instead, and then she was permitted on the social work education program. And maybe because of this not ringing, she became a civil servant herself. And from within the municipality regime, she started to change things. Well, she did that for 10 years, and now she has her own training company. It's a very successful training company. So these are people, and I have lots of examples that show resilience because they found ways to, well, what I just told about these 8 lessons, to connect, to relate to others, and in that way become stronger and better people as well. So for me, this is I have I have a poem translated in English from Paul Valéry. He says a thing about this. He says, it depends on who passes by if I am tomb or treasury, if I speak or keep silent. It all depends on you, friend. Don't enter without desire. And that is what happens with this relational turn. Don't enter without desire, because there is a lot of desire and hope and expectation that can be developed and used to bring this network of people from knowledge to experience, experts in this movement. So that's, I think, what happens, that there's a lot of potentiality and it's blossoming, and it can't be turned back. I think it's too big at the moment, also in the programs of the city, and not just Amsterdam, it's all over Holland. And well, simply it's turned dissociation into association. That's what we do, and learn humanity by fighting inhumanity, because that's what their experience is full of, inhumanity. Well, this is a bit of the practice here. Maybe you recognize?
Yes, very much. Thank you for all the precision of what you are doing. It fits a lot with what I've been thinking. I took a lot of notes here about your thought, you know, and especially the 8 lessons, you know, because the 8 lessons are very important, because it gives us a line to follow somehow, you know, and the experienced experts and the experienced knowledge. I think this is another thing that it touches me a lot. And when you talk about capitalism, you know, in the last times, I've been avoiding to talk about capitalism. I explain why. Because simply saying, I don't think capitalism is the problem. I think the capitalist is the problem. Because, as you said before, the problem is human being. It's not what human beings are producing. You know, the human being itself, it's the problem. And capitalism leads to individualism. It leads to you yourself. So, I mean, the I becomes the most important thing, and not the we, as you said, right? And that is, it's exactly the way of competition that is proposed by capitalism. You know, as more we compete with each other, as better I am. You know, I am the champion somehow. Nothing to do with sports. I think this is more to do with in the social level, right? And to be cooperative in our times, it became it became a project, something that should be normal. I read a book written by two anthropologues, which I forgot the name, but they researched about inequality. When inequality started in the human history, in between the humans in the world, you know. So they went back ages ago, you know, and it's very interesting because they found only a few populations where inequality was very much low, and they had equality as the main thing. And they found that in places where there was no competition, there was inclusion and not exclusion of the whole different people in the community, no? And also there was not heredity. I mean, somebody that is more than the other one. Everything was discussed in cooperation with the whole group of people in these populations, almost tribes. You know, this is one thing that it reminds me. The other thing is that
the book of Graeber, probably was his name Graeber, the man he passed away.
Yes,
last year. Yeah,
it was him and another one,
yeah,
which is still alive. It's a book like that, you know. It needs a lot of.
Yeah.
But I went through the whole book because it was really interesting, and very much different than Harari's book, you know. And they went into very much detailed things of some populations, you know, from South America, from North America, and what these people from America, the original people from America, brought as knowledge to Europe too. It was very nice. The other thing is
he was the inventor of the term bullshit jobs.
Was it? I see.
In a former book, he said that this system we have, based on control and directing on measurable aims, produces a lot of bullshit jobs instead of social richness.
Yes.
They produce nothing else than, it doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't produce extra things. It's a very good term, and he estimated that in our societies, 30-40% are bullshit jobs. So it's
sure.
So as soon as people talk about efficiency, I think of him.
It's true. I was not. I didn't know that, but it's very, very, very true. This. And the other thing, there was a Brazilian native from the Amazon. He wrote a book called The Ancestral Future, which means, this name means the future is to find what was good in the past, somehow. And the other thing is that as more human beings destroy the world or destroy nature, as more nature becomes strong and will take over one day. So ancestrality is becoming stronger and stronger. And for that, taking your lessons just from the start, we always depend on the other. We always need the other. Since the beginning, a human being cannot survive without the other. This, from me to us, is that I form my identity through the other since I am born, or even before I am born, right? And the other thing is, the second one is that about trust. Without trust, we don't survive. Because since the beginning, we need to trust the other to become a human being. If you don't trust the other, you become not human. No.
And that's make the discussion about capitalism interesting, because capitalism is a competition.
Yes.
But also has to do something with trust. When you can't trust, you can't deal with people. So I'm not against capitalism in the way that it organizes a lot of energy. People may start to invent things and well, to use things, you need capital. Well, we all know. So that's not the problem. The problem is that it's how to bring the bad things out of that. And we have you have the former president, and we had Trump as example, that it can be very dangerous, capitalism as well, but it's not normally always dangerous. No.
But there's also incredible, fascinating, also in what you are sharing about your insights, the 8 kind of human qualities that are inherent in our being human. And so there is also an evolutionary force where a crisis more or less eat up itself. You have now your own organization, the AMNE. You organize.
It's a network. It's not an organization.
Sorry, it's a network.
That's quite the difference.
You use something that you see all around, especially now in those days, also in Holland. In a way, people feel there is an end on this neoliberalism, and we need more. We need more community. We need more to validate our humanness from our neighbors. So there's a kind of new enlightenment process to recognize the human values. Your 8 are really human values, and you bring them forward in there where they are most needed for this moment. And that's the people, we call them poor now. And it's also in those days that also these poor people say, hey, we are poor, we can hardly live. There is no quality. And so in a way, I don't know how to say it, this kind of evolutionary forces needs, let me say, this kind of orientation to bring forth where the crisis opens up potentiality and powers that you cannot also resist.
Well, there's one problem with that. We will have elections in November.
Yeah.
And now almost every party talks about bestaanszekerheid. So that poverty should be challenged. So always, also the right-wing neoliberal parties, they say, well, it went wrong too much the wrong way. Right. That's a remarkable thing, and sometimes I almost think has this to do what the Germans call the Zeitgeist, so that there is an atmosphere, a mental atmosphere, collective mental atmosphere that is changing, like the 60s had a mental atmosphere, Zeitgeist. And is this Zeitgeist now that it starts to stop or end with the neoliberal Zeitgeist after 40 years? Maybe that these are collective processes we don't understand yet, and I don't trust political parties in this way that they all talk now, because that's probably what people want them to tell. But on the other hand, there is some change going from the more or less cold individualism.
Right.
And that started with, in the 80s, we had this Liberal Party, and that went in the elections with Be Just Yourself. That was the motto. Et je raketje, VVD. Gewoon jezelf zijn. And now they won't say that anymore. There's another profiling now. It's more social. Yeah, I don't know if it's just a fake thing or that it really happens now that we are becoming in a new zeitgeist.
I think because one moment you said also maybe in another conversation, it's also it's a polycrisis, but it's also a crisis of the heart. And you see the amount of suffering that happened the last 20 years, that neoliberalism couldn't make everybody happy, couldn't spell out poverty, couldn't give people a sense of who I am has meaning, all this. So I found it kind of, this zeitgeist has a very strong inward movement, so that, let me say, people like you, and where there's three sources of knowledge coming together, in a way you get a kind of, you get a wind in your back now. There is something also that you build up and are rewarded for the long journey through the evolution.
I'm also, this was one example, this Amsterdam network experience knowledge. Another example is that the most poor part of Amsterdam, the New West, so New West, there is a very ambitious program in which they use this word bondgenoten, so this committed cooperative companions, as a key of change. So all kind of people, not just say I do my job, but say I'm committed to these values. That's very interesting too. And what happens then is there will be a lot of dilemmas and conflicts, because, well, you can easily say I'm committed and I autograph and now I'm part of this movement, and it is subsidized by the European Union because it's one of the underdeveloped parts of Europe, and there is extra money for that. But then you should change yourself, and I'm in this program, for example. There are people there that always had the job of controlling. There were, how can you say that? They worked for the municipality, and their job was that the money that was given to certain activities or projects, that they controlled whether they had this done right. And I seduced them to be part of the process. So not just saying at the end, oh, you did it well, or you did it not well, and you have to pay money back, or etc. I say, well, there are a lot of these. How interesting will that be when you become partner, that you be part of these experiments money is given to? And then I saw some people became very enthusiastic. They didn't just want to be an ambtenaar. They want to be a participant in this social innovation. But a lot of them, they didn't like that. And sometimes it had to do with competence. For example, they were so closed in this role that they couldn't even make contact. Take the telephone, say, can I make an appointment and see what you're doing, and not just as a controller, but as a participant. They couldn't do that. So it's you can say, well, it will go this direction, but a lot of people are in roles that made them very secure. And because they are driven, fear-driven, they claim this security. So that's an interesting part of how to change this overall fear people have, and in which they become so narrow-minded. It's how to battle fear. That's one of the things I see now in the West, and what's necessary, and how to, for example, we had it about this capitalism, neoliberalism, all these egos and all this competition, etc. What happens there is that there is also a democratization process. So inhabitants, people who live there, that they are part of these processes, and they organize them in that they're not just competing each other. So they make bigger. And as soon as they sit there, then what happens is, what do you have more than me? So this old, and it's very difficult to struggle that, and you need a way of using conflicts to learn.
Yes.
So I like conflicts now, because that's
But I always have to laugh.
from learning.
Looking for our individual lives, how we live our lives, how we are part of the changement, what the challenges and what are the difficulties it was for me to change this kind of relationships with people. And
Yeah.
also, we know being a part of the change, it asks also everything from you to participate from a knowing perspective, how challenging it is to be more in the unknown, to not to be in control, not to abuse your power. My goodness, we need, in this way, we need our own teams to explore and support each other to go through what we invite other people to go through. Now, that's just what comes up listening to you. You like conflicts now. I like and know that we really need each other on all these levels to understand, to be with each other, to support each other, to make also how do you say it, to really also give ourselves the permission to change and to go through the challenges.
But how you verbalize it, it's what happened there. That was a covenant, and that was all positive, and we should learn from each other. And then the practice, and then the conflicts, and then it's interesting how to learn from these conflicts.
Right. Yeah.
One thing I just like to add to us, to both of you, to us, is that what I feel in this discussion we are having is that it's not only, this is a challenge to say, it's not only the heart that can solve the problems. I think the heart is basic, but the heart must be intelligent. It must be an intelligent heart. It cannot be only a heart, peace and love, as in the 70s. It must be an intelligent heart, a heart that connects with the brain too. So I feel you use a lot your intelligence, your heart intelligence, to create this kind of cooperation that you are creating around you and around society and around other people. And I feel that's the hard point, is to connect to the intelligence of the heart, and not only the basic heart itself, where we can exchange, we can produce, we don't need to compete, and there is space for everybody to participate and be there. And also, when you feel human, you have the energy, you have the power, and you have the love to do something. Without that, it's pretty hard. At least for me, and it's much easier when you love what you do, but intelligent love somehow, And
not something
only, that's it.
That's a very important thing you say, and there's where we were talking about, you can't be naive. You can't say, well, when we're all together, then it will be okay. And so this intelligence is needed also because some people, you cannot say it's just they are not that far yet. Some people are real evil, and their evilness is their identity. So you should be aware of that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
And that also needs intelligence.
Yes. Yes. To go through the evil and try to find what is underneath there somehow, because in the evil there is a lot of energy, a lot of power. If we can remean this, give a new significance for this evil power, then we might find the human being underneath that. Yes, and I have the feeling that your work is very therapeutic too. So because you open up minds and hearts, you create cooperation. I mean, this is very, very therapeutic for everybody.
Yeah, and this evil thing is not people don't like to talk about that. For example, in the US, they are very progressive, let's say, that way of thinking. But I sometimes say, well, you can't say, well, the people who are living here, that should be the motor of change. So, but there are a lot of people here who are completely racist. So what to do with that? So that's on the basic level the same thing as what to do with people are attracted to Trump or in the right-wing parties here, and so you should deal with that as well. What is the energy behind that they say, well, that is I give my future to these idiots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we can see in most countries, sometimes the majority is very much influenced by this, let's say, this not nice side of the human being. Lot of people.
Yeah.
And so everything we do in this sense, I think it cooperates in growing new opportunities for the human being. I'm not very much optimistic, I must say, but I keep doing my job.
Yeah, like you invite us to talk.
Yes.
Doing a job, and that's really one of your strong points, Rubens. You always are busy to let people communicate with each other and bring that communication into a bigger field. That's why we can sit here. So, yeah, you're doing your job very precise and very intelligent. Your heart is spontaneously intelligent. Okay, sorry. No, and thank you for making this possible for ages already. It's really one of your big desires and one of your big qualities to bring people together and bring wisdom in it. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm not pessimistic. I'm in the way that the striving for happiness, it's an old thing within people. I studied Spinoza. He brought it in as a very important enlightenment, literally enlightenment a motive to look at these things. And he was against frozen moral in the way of 10 commandments or religious frozen things. His way of moralizing was fluent. I would say as in the situation there were no standards for that. It was always acknowledging the situation, the moment, and then you can say this is better and this is worse. And so that way I study Spinoza. He already had this fight against all this moralizing powers he had to struggle in this in the 17th century, and we still have to. Yeah.
And he was in Amsterdam, right?
Yeah. Spinoza was basically in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
He lived in the time that there was a bit of freedom
Yes.
of thinking,
Yeah.
and he had a ring with it, the letters Caute. He knew that when he was too outspoken, he would be killed. So he was very cautious, you know, even then. And later on, people were killed, and well, the Gebroeders de Wit.
But he never left to do his job. This was nice and very precise. He never gave up
No.
to the power of destruction.
Yeah.
He kept doing his job. And I think this is very optimistic. We keep doing our job.